Hello and welcome back to the Spicy Pisces podcast. I'm your host, Emma Jepson, and I'm so happy you're here. Thank you for joining me today. So, welcome to the fourth episode. So, today we're going to be talking about the holiday season, navigating recovery when there's a lot of holidays around. There tends to be a lot more food around us, maybe some family members that like to drop very unsolicited and triggering comments, and there's a lot of negative content circulating social media about how to stay on track this time of year with Thanksgiving and Christmas and all of the baked goods. And yeah, it can be a very stressful time of year if you're in recovery and or struggling with your relationship with food. And although it can be a really difficult time of year, it's important to remember that one, you're not alone, and two, you do deserve to enjoy all of the good food and fun celebrations during this time of year. And today I just want to share a few tips and tricks I've picked up along the way in my recovery journey that have really helped me navigate this time of year. And I also want to reflect on this season in past years for me and how it's very different this year with my new mindset in recovery and these tips that I'm constantly pulling into my life and reminding myself of to make sure that I actually enjoy the season this year, because I do deserve to have fun during this time of year and not be stressing over food and body 24/7. So I guess to start off with some reflection, Thanksgiving just passed. I meant to put up an episode before with tips going into it, but I got a little busy with like some midterms and then traveling back home for a break, and it got a little crazy, so I thought it would be cool to reflect on it maybe instead of doing a episode before. So Thanksgiving has always been one of my favorite holidays because of the food, but I think I used to get really excited for this day for the wrong reasons. I saw it more as a day to forego all of my food rules and ignore any fear foods I had for the time being and just kind of quote unquote indulge in as much of whatever foods I wanted, irrespective of my true cravings and fullness levels. So I'd eat way past a comfortable level of fullness because I thought this was my one time to eat all these foods that I put as off limits for myself the rest of the year, and I needed to fill all the times that I would get a craving for this food in that one sitting. And total opposite of intuitive eating, I don't want to say disrespected my body, but I wasn't treating it well during this time, and I guess it's almost like a binging episode, right? I know that that's a more serious, that's a classification of an eating disorder, and I know I've spoken to some other people and their experience with binging, and I never had the level where you fully black out and you don't even remember eating what you ate. I never got to that level, but I did have some quite frequently actually the binge restrict cycle with the overeating episode. So I don't want to throw around the word binge too lightly because I know it is a more serious disorder, and I don't think I ever had that level of it, but I guess I'll use the term overeating. So I overate severely. And I was super uncomfortable, and my body and mind were telling me to just stop eating, but something deeper in me was like, no, you need to keep eating because you don't know the next time you're going to have these foods. And it's almost a feedback mechanism for, I guess, like starving yourself, and like the survival mechanism, like your body just wants to keep eating because it doesn't know the next time, it's going to be able to eat these foods or eat enough to satisfy itself. So maybe it was also the fact that I was feeling myself properly and eating enough in that moment when I hadn't the rest of the year. My body was like, okay, you need to keep eating because you need to feel yourself properly because you haven't been. So that could have been a part of it as well. And also, even though I granted myself permission to eat these fear foods and just eat more food on this day, I still felt so incredibly shitty afterwards and guilty with myself. It's nonstop. You're just guilty. Even if you work out enough or even if you restrict long enough to still eat these foods, you still feel horrible and so ashamed with yourself, which is something I've had to work on constantly, because you shouldn't live a life where no matter what you do, you just feel ashamed and guilty and shitty about eating. Food should not have that control over you, and it should be something that you look forward to, and food should be exciting and you enjoy it, and it shouldn't be this complicated toxic relationship. It's supposed to be gentle and simple and easy, and so it shouldn't be something that's super heavy like that. But now that I'm in recovery, I guess I've learned to give myself more grace during this time of year and freedom to enjoy these foods during these holidays. And this year was actually one of the best years in a while. 4 years ago from Thanksgiving this year was the peak of my eating disorder, and that was probably the worst year I've had with holiday season. And I remember going into Thanksgiving, I think the days leading up to actual Thanksgiving Day, I think I worked out a little bit more, and I might have restricted a little bit more than I already had been. But I remember on Thanksgiving specifically, I only let myself have like a slice of toast with peanut butter in the morning, and I basically fasted the rest of the day because I needed to feel like I had earned dinner, and I was able to make as much room in my stomach, I guess, as I could to eat all these foods that I knew I was really excited to eat because I hadn't let myself eat them for most of the year. So that was, I wasn't even really able to enjoy the day because I was so fixated on just the food. Couldn't focus, I couldn't enjoy the company I was with, I couldn't enjoy the conversations going on, the music, the smells of the food. I was just so hyper fixated on making sure that I had felt like I earned the food, and then when I got to the actual eating portion, I almost I don't know, it just wasn't a good mentality going in, and I don't remember the day being specifically great because I left, even though I ate a lot of the foods that I wanted and told myself you don't have any rules going into this, you can eat whatever you wanted. I still felt so shitty with myself afterwards for eating more food than I typically did at the time. And I think the next day I worked out extra hard to make sure I quote unquote burned off any of the extra food I ate or any of the fear foods I consumed then. And mentally it was just really hard to cope with and deal with because also at the time I didn't have anyone in my life I could talk to about this at the time, and I also didn't know how to formulate the thoughts going on in my head and what the feelings I was dealing with. I didn't know how to put that into words and articulate what I was dealing with. So it was like a mental battle at the time, and I just remember I hated myself, and I just felt very trapped in that mindset, and it wasn't a very great time of year. And like Christmas as well, just with the cookies and I love baking, so I made a lot of cookies for my family, but I only let myself eat like a couple a day, or it was just that mental, I really wanted one, but I was like, you already ate as many as you let yourself have for the day, so you can't have one until tomorrow. And then you're constantly thinking about that until the next day, which is not a healthy mindset to have at all. So then this year was definitely one of the best Thanksgivings I've had in a while. I made breakfast that day, I guess on Thanksgiving Day. I ate foods that I craved throughout the day. If I was hungry, I honored that hunger cue, and I ate before dinner. And I went into dinner, I made a plate of things that sounded good to me, that I was craving. I kind of checked in with myself and saw how hungry I was, my hunger levels, my cravings, and I made a plate according to that, and I sat down and I ate it. I went back for seconds and some things that I wanted a little bit more of, and so I let myself go up and get a little bit more of it because I wanted to honor that craving in the moment. And I let myself eat all the desserts, some of the things I baked. I got a few slices of that, and I just, looking back, I was a lot more present in the conversations going on and the company around and the people I was sitting with and the lighting and the warmth in the room and the people with me and the conversations going on. And I was less focused on, am I meeting my calorie count for the day? Am I exceeding it? Do I feel like I've already gained some weight? Do my jeans feel tighter? Do I really need to eat this extra bite of this dessert, or can I pass up on it? Or I really want another piece of this thing or another little taste of it, but do I really need it because I already feel like I've eaten enough today? Or maybe, I worked out earlier, so I deserve another piece of this, but I'm not even really craving it anymore, but I feel like I need to eat it because this is my last chance to eat it before, I guess, next year. So just constantly, just thinking about food and body and nothing else really going on up there, not actually being able to just enjoy the holiday and step out of my head and be present and just enjoy the company I'm with and just being present. And I actually made a blog post about all of these reminders that I'm going to share, which is up on my website, but I'm just going to read the tips that I posted on there. So the first one is you don't need to restrict your food intake the days leading up to the holiday. You're allowed to eat how you normally do and don't need to save up calories for the quote-unquote big day, because this habit and mindset only perpetuates the binge restrict cycle. You're allowed to go into Thanksgiving dinner without having fasted the entire day. If you're hungry in the morning or afternoon, you're allowed to eat. And I know sometimes other family members might be talking about fasting during the day because they want to make sure they're hungry enough later for dinner, and sometimes that can be very hard to deal with, and mentally you're like, oh, should I be fasting then? If they are, like, is it wrong if I'm eating now? Also, like, are they going to judge me for eating now if they're not? And you just need to do what works for you. And in recovery too, it's especially important to make sure that you're honoring your cravings and your hunger cues, irrespective of what other people are doing, because everyone has a totally different mentality around food and body. And I'm going to be talking about that a little bit later in one of the other tips, but you just need to make sure that you're doing what you think is best for you, and you don't need to be restricting to save up quote-unquote calories for later in the day. You just eat when you're hungry, irregardless of what others are doing, and you shouldn't feel ashamed for making that decision. Second tip is you don't need to punish yourself with excessive exercise for eating more food and or cheat foods on days like Thanksgiving. You're allowed to continue moving your body in ways that feel good to you, but you shouldn't feel the compulsive need to excessively move to quote-unquote burn off calories. Food isn't always meant to be fuel and is so much more than a calculation. It is enjoyment, comfort, nostalgia, memories, family time, and more. I lived with this idea for so long that food is just a number and a quote-unquote calorie, and it's calories in and calories out, and food can't be anything other than fuel. So every time I ate, I was like, how can I quote-unquote burn off these calories, or maybe make room for calories that I'll be eating later in the day. It just felt transactional, right? And it didn't feel like I could just eat something simply because I wanted to and simply for enjoyment. I felt like I had to either make room for it or burn it off if it didn't meet my calorie threshold for the day. And that is such a toxic mentality to have. And food is so much more than that. It's not just a calculation. You can eat something simply because you want to, and you don't have to do anything about it. You don't have to burn it off. You don't have to make room for other foods later in the day that maybe don't fit your quote-unquote, your quote-unquote diet. And I'm not saying diet in a negative light here. I'm just referring to the foods that you tend to eat. And if it doesn't fit in that, you don't have to feel the need to compensate for it with exercise, because exercise is supposed to be a way to honor your body and what it's able to do, and it's supposed to be fun and positive, and it's not supposed to be a negative thing that you use to punish yourself. It's supposed to be a fun thing you use to celebrate what your body is capable of doing, and if you use it as a form of burning off calories, it's just going to perpetuate that negative association that you have with it. So yes, you don't need to burn off calories. If you want to move and you want to be active during this time of year, totally go for it, but just make sure it's for the right reasons of, like I said before, honoring your body and because you want to, not because you feel the compulsive need to burn off food. Third tip is that you're allowed to eat leftovers if you want to, and these same foods over the course of the coming days, weeks, months, and years. They shouldn't feel off limits or like they can only be eaten on special occasions. Food categorization and labeling foods as good versus bad is a really toxic habit that diet culture has instilled in so many of us. And in a truly healthy relationship with food, all foods are going to fit 365 days of the year. So when I went into Thanksgiving 4 years ago, I told myself that these were foods I could only eat on quote-unquote special occasions, and I put them on a pedestal, and they felt like really overly special things that I can only enjoy on select days of the year. And I didn't let myself enjoy any leftovers, any of the leftover mashed potatoes and gravy, or maybe a pumpkin cake or pumpkin pie or apple pie. And this is why I tended to overeat then at dinner, because I wouldn't let myself eat these foods other times of the year. And if you make all foods available to you and you don't make any off limits, you're going to have a much healthier relationship with food, because you're not going to feel the need to binge or overeat on certain foods when you allow yourself to, or when you have the opportunity to and they're around you. You're going to be able to just eat what you're craving when you're craving it, eat when you're hungry, and there's not going to be any of this excessive dialogue going on in your head about, oh, well, I need to burn off X amount of calories to eat this, or I'm only allowed to eat these foods on this day, and I'm not going to be able to focus on any of the other things going around because I'm just going to be thinking about food the entire time. And if I felt like I earned it enough, or if I had, like, how much of it am I able to have then to correlate to how many calories I burned off. And like I mentioned in the previous point, food is meant to be enjoyed. It's not only fuel, and Thanksgiving food is so freaking delicious in my opinion. So you're allowed to eat it whenever you want. It doesn't even have to be on Thanksgiving or in November. If you want to make these foods in, I don't know, May, you're allowed to still eat them then. You don't have to wait till Thanksgiving every year to enjoy these foods. Fourth point is, if someone made a triggering comment either to you or someone else about food or body, remind yourself that it has more to do with them and their relationship with food and perspective on food body than it does you and your mindset on these topics. It can be hard to not internalize these comments, but once you realize that what they say is a reflection of them and not you, you're able to let these comments bounce off of you more easily and continue living your life with your new mindset around food and body. I struggled so much in the past with comments people would make on what I was eating, how much I was eating, the types of food I was eating, and also like what my body looked like and body image. And I got so self-conscious about what people had to say, and I cared so much about what other people thought, and I would take everything people said to heart. And I wasn't able to realize that a lot of people just project their own mindsets and insecurities onto you, and most of the time it has nothing to do with you or what you're actually doing. They're just noticing something you're doing, and they feel the need to vocalize their own opinion on it, and that doesn't mean you have to agree with it, or you have to take it personally and take it to heart and change the way you're doing things to align with the way they think. So if someone asks why you're taking another slice of cake or pie, or are you really still hungry to have another piece of this, they're most likely themselves just going through an internal dialogue of wanting another slice of something, but they're not healed enough in their relationship with food and body, or I don't want to say healed, but they're not in the same place as you where you're able to just honor your cues or your cravings and your hunger cues, and just being able to go up and grab another slice if you want another slice. And they might recognize that you're able to do that, but they're not. So they feel the need to call it out and say something about it, and that has nothing to do with you or the fact that you wanted to get another slice of pie. That has everything to do with them and their own mindset and the dialogue that they're dealing with in their own head. So just reminding yourself that it has so much more to do with them, and most of the time nothing to do with you. And this year I was able to just let these comments deflect off of me, or even if they're made to other people about maybe, fasting during the day so that you can make room for food later, I reminded myself that I don't use that mentality anymore. I honor my cravings, my hunger cues, and I didn't take those comments to heart or let them affect me. I just kept going with my mindset and reminded myself that I'm really happy with the direction my relationship with food and my body is going in. So I'm going to continue with my mentality, and I don't need to let other people's comments, opinions affect me. And I don't need to accept someone's judgment of my mentality around food or body if I'm really happy with the way mine is going in. And I can choose to just not give a fuck about what people have to say about that stuff, and remind myself that it has nothing to do with me and my mindset. There's nothing wrong with the way I'm thinking about food or body, and you don't need to let their words affect you. Number 5 is going off of this point. So if the comments are targeted at you specifically, and it's gotten to the point where you simply can't take it anymore, you do have the power to put your foot down and set boundaries with these people. And I just have on my blog, I have a description of it as well, but something I recommend you could say as a template is, I would appreciate it if you stopped commenting on my body, eating habits, etc. It's really triggering since I'm currently in recovery from dealing with disordered eating. or restrictive eating habits or an eating disorder, and I just really want to enjoy this time of year in peace without thinking about food and body image constantly. So I hope you can respect that. Something I've also learned as I've, aged is people can't read your mind, and especially when I was dealing with my eating disorder, my family knew I was struggling, but I don't think they understood to the degree of what I was going through and the thoughts I was struggling with every day. And now that I've started vocalizing this and speaking to them about what I went through, and also they view they read and listen and watch my content, so they're able to see more of the insides of my brain and thought processes and beliefs on these topics, so they know a lot more of what I went through. But you're allowed to speak up and say, please don't talk about this with me, please don't say this to me, please don't make these judgments. It's really, really triggering, and if you want to support me and you want to let me have an enjoyable holiday, like, I'd appreciate it if you just stopped targeting me in these things, because it's really freaking annoying, and I don't understand why you feel the need to call me out on these things, because it's something I am working on, and I'm already struggling enough by myself, so when you call it out, it just makes me feel even more like shit, and if you really loved me, you wouldn't be doing that to me. So you can choose to say something like that. And also, when people make these comments, sometimes they think they're doing something good, and it's not with a malicious intent either. So I know in the past, like, my mom has made comments in my body and the food I eat, and I know it's coming from a place of love, which is a little twisted to say, but she grew up, in the 90s and the early 2000s when diet culture was so prevalent, and it was ingrained in literally every single person, and it was everywhere in life back then. And she thought she was being loving by saying, do you really need to eat that? Or making comments on the food I was eating, or maybe talking about body image and stuff with me. And it had no malicious intent, and for her, she didn't think she was doing anything wrong. But then I finally vocalized to her that I'd really appreciate it if you didn't say these things to me like that, or you just wouldn't bring up this topic around me, because I know you're not coming from a negative, you're not trying to, harm me or make me upset when you say these things. It's coming from a place of care and wanting to look out for me. But to me, when you say these things, this is how I feel. I don't feel like you care about my feelings. I feel hurt and I feel upset. And I just would appreciate it if you didn't say these things to me anymore. And you can't control how the other person responds, which is the not so great part. But if someone really cares about you and really loves you and wants the best for you, they're gonna try to understand where you're coming from, your perspective, what you've been dealing with, and they're gonna try to change their ways so that you do feel loved and supported around them. So, and this is really difficult to have these conversations, but you can totally do it. You've got it. Like, it's scary, but you need to do it to do what's best for you. And you do have the power and authority to speak your mind and tell people how you want to be treated and spoken to, and also just vocalizing your own struggles as well. It's really scary, but it's a really important step in your recovery journey, and you are more than capable of doing it. I am cheering you on. You can use the script I have if you want to DM me to talk about what you're planning on saying. My DMs are always open to you. I want to support you all on your recovery journeys, because I didn't have that support when I was going through mine, and the beginning stages of it as well, which is really difficult and tricky to navigate. So I'm here to help you. And yeah, you've got it. It's scary, but you are more than capable of doing it. The sixth point is to try and step out of your head and all of the thoughts running through it about food and body, and try to center yourself with where you're at, who you're talking to, the sounds in the background, the smells, the sights. It's so easy to get wrapped up in your own thoughts and constantly just be thinking about food and body and getting caught up in all of that. But consistently reminding yourself to be present will slowly start to minimize the loudness of these thoughts and take more and more power away from them. This is something that I'm constantly working on, but I'm trying to enjoy all of these special moments and holidays a lot more, and being able to actually be present and enjoying the company I'm with, listening to the conversations going on. And also, now that I've dedicated less mental capacity towards food and body related topics, I've taken away the power that they have over me, and I've made more space for other positive thoughts like my professional development, what I want to do in the future for a career, other people I've met through clubs, and other topics I'm really excited and passionate about. And I've been able to dedicate more energy and attention to these things instead of food and body. And it's significantly helped me in my recovery journey. And also being able to be present now during the holidays, I focus less on the food around me and how I feel about my body and how I think I look and maybe the outfit I'm wearing, and just enjoying the company I'm with and the energy, and instead of fixating so much on just food and body like 24/7. The seventh point is to turn off social media if it's a trigger for you. There's such a fine line between just hopping onto an app to watch a video or two and then entering the doom scroll, which sucks us in so quickly. And I don't know if it's because I spend less time in social media now, but some of the content that I see pop up is so outrageously alarming and absurdly shocking to me that someone would actually promote the content that they're promoting, especially to the younger crowd on these apps who are much more impressionable. I see that the holiday season content can be so overwhelming and triggering to consume in large volumes. So in order to evade having my good mood entirely depleted by social media, I remove some of the apps from my home screen if I feel like it'll be hard to stay off of them. And I mean, there's no need to engage in something that you know will only lower your mood and hurt you. And trust me, you're not going to miss out on anything that important if you stay off of the app for a few days or even choose to delete it. I officially deleted TikTok. I don't know if I'll ever get back on it, maybe to post more about my podcast, but I just don't like it for personal, I guess, enjoyment, just to scroll. It took so much time away that I could be spending on other more important things and engaging in other activities that actually make me feel good about myself. And I also got rid of Snapchat just because I wasn't using it anymore, but also you go on the app and you just see what other people are doing and the cool, exciting highlights of their holiday season, and it just makes you feel shitty about yourself then because you're not doing cool things, and specifically with the negative content that's circulating. There's a lot of videos that people post on how to change your mindset to, stay on track with your diet this season, and low calorie versions of desserts that you can be making, and portion control, and body image stuff. And it's just a lot to consume. You just get sucked into this doom scroll where it's so many videos and you're just consuming all of this content in a short amount of time. And it's so overwhelming and it just clogs your brain. And it's just a lot of negative content. And also, I don't think a lot of people have the authority to be promoting the things they do. They're not registered dietitians. They're not professionals, or they haven't spent years practicing something. They just heard it from someone else, or maybe they just think it themselves and they just choose to promote it. Which I guess is what I'm doing with this, but I feel like this is more of a positive environment, and my goal is to foster a safe space on here where people feel comfortable talking about things they're dealing with. There's no judgment, and they never leave viewing my content or hearing or watching something I posted feeling worse about themselves. You only feel better and more heard and accepted and seen. So I don't know, maybe I'm doing the same thing here and other people feel the same way about me, but I feel like people don't think about the repercussions of what they're going to post, or maybe how toxic it could be to some people. It made the holiday season even worse for me. So I just chose to officially delete it because I couldn't take viewing all of this content, because it just made me question my recovery journey and the direction I was going in. And like I said before, there's no need to engage in something that's gonna hurt you. You shouldn't be doing things intentionally that are gonna lower your mood and make you feel worse about yourself. And the apps can become so freaking addicting, but you need to do what's best for you, and you need to know that you need to put yourself first in this case. And you're allowed to delete the app if you want to. Is it not weird I know some people thought it was weird that I got off the app, but I'm I don't want to put myself in a position anymore where I'm viewing content that doesn't make me feel good about myself and makes me feel even shittier about the way I look or the way I eat or the way I feel. So you're completely and totally allowed to delete the app, even just remove it for a few days, and I think you should if it's a big trigger for you. The last and 8th point is that there's so much more to life than food, calories, body image, clothing sizes, etc. Your body is not going to change from eating a few cookies, and it won't ruin all of the progress to enjoy the food this holiday season. Life is truly too freaking short and special to spend all of your time and energy counting every piece of food you put into your body and fixating on how every inch of your body looks every day. You deserve to actually enjoy yourself this holiday season and not just constantly be thinking about if you're going to gain weight from eating this extra cookie or eating a little bit more this day, or just noticing if your body changes even the slightest bit because you chose to eat a little bit more or something like that, or you skipped a few days of working out because you had family over and you wanted to spend more time with them. Like that, it's just such a unhappy way to live and a very toxic mentality to have that diet culture has convinced us is totally normal to adopt and accept, and I don't think that's okay. And I think it's more than acceptable to say I reject this mindset and I'm not going to live my life like this any longer, because I was put on this earth to do so much more than simply spend every waking minute of my day thinking about if I fit this unattainable beauty standard, or how am I going to work towards it, or counting over calories in the dish I'm eating to meet my thresholds for the day so that I can meet my goals. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to, quote unquote, eat more healthy foods or like nutritious foods. I totally understand that, because more nutritiously dense foods are simply what make me feel best and most energized to go about my day. But I also know that it's important to have balance, and that this time of year brings a lot of really good foods. And I'll bake cookies with my cousins and my parents and family members, and it's not just simply about the food, it's a way of bringing us together and in celebrating and getting into the holiday spirit and making a gingerbread house and baking some sugar cookies that we decorate, or maybe a gingerbread cake or something like that. Like, it's part of the enjoying the holiday season as well. It's not all about the food, and I don't need to just be fixating on food and body 24/7 this time of year, because I'm allowed to enjoy myself and have fun and remind myself that there's so much more to life than thinking about food and body all the time. So just to wrap up, although the holiday season can be an anxious few months to navigate, you are more than capable of not only getting through it, but also having fun and enjoying yourself this time of year. Give yourself grace and know that you've got this. You have the power this holiday season, not diet culture. And I'm cheering you on as always. You are more than capable of reaffirming these new mindsets in recovery and dealing with any of the discomfort that arises from choosing to change your mentality and think differently this year. So this is the end of the episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I can totally make another one of these with some more reflection points on the holiday season. Maybe you want me to go into more depth about something in particular that I talked about, or maybe something else entirely that you had on your mind and you wanted to get my advice or perspective on it. You can reach out to me on Instagram at Eats by Emma. Eats is with a Z. You can DM me your questions, comments, concerns. You can also add a question in the Q&A box in the description of my podcast in this episode. I'm going to have that up today. Also, if you're enjoying my podcast so far, feel free to leave a rating and or a review at the top of the podcast homepage. I really appreciate it starting out. Also, just trying to gauge how you all are enjoying it so far, if you like the topics I'm talking about, the ways I'm talking about them, and how to best develop this podcast going into the future. If you made it to the end, thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, your week, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye.